that is absolutely amazing, and you know, this is the first time that you know we have a president from Asia as the Caritas Internationalis, the super leader, and this position has got you know enormous opportunity you know to reclaim that you know what the Caritas is all about, or what Caritas commitment to the poor, and you know as Pope Francis calling us to do that, go out to peripheries and serve people, and that is where you know the poor people, and that is something that you know His Eminence Cardinal Tagle will have the opportunity to play his role as the Cardinal of the poor. He himself is known by everyone in Philippines and all over that he is the Cardinal of the poor, and this is the one of the huge opportunity you know for Church in Philippines and Catholics in Philippines and you know Christians all over the world, because you know Caritas Internationalis is a huge confederation of you know over 160 Catholic member organizations, and Cardinal Tagle is the president now, and that is a hot news for all of us. So that makes me happy for today. It is something you know quite remarkable, I would say. It is not election like politicking happens or campaign happens. Rather, you know, a separate committee, a separate body was constituted by CI to conduct the election in a transparent manner, so that you know there is no issue of you know politicking happens. Because if that is the case, you know each candidate will be seem to be looking for this position. But in this case, things are not going like that, because each candidates were nominated by a member organization. In this case, you know, Cardinal Tagle's nomination came from Caritas Asia, but as individually it's from NASA Caritas Philippines, supported by all the Caritases from Asia. That was a decision taken during Caritas Asia meeting earlier, and he has been got the support in the election even. And then the separate committee, you know, that will have to scrutinize the candidacy of you know each candidature, and then will be announced to all member organizations that you know who are these candidates. And this case, there were two candidates, one from Cyprus, that was you know I think Cardinal Yusuf was. He has been one of the board member of CI and supported by Caritas Europa Bishops Conference. But in the meantime, what we learned from Caritas news agencies is that Cardinal Tagle will be the only candidate. But all of a sudden, we have seen you know the news from Caritas Cyprus, the Archbishop Yusuf from Caritas Cyprus, he himself is the Caritas president of Caritas Cyprus, and his candidature also announced. And since you know he is known to Caritas, we thought you know there will be a tight competition. But what we normally expect in assembly is that each candidate will be given time to present and talk to the member organizations present or those who are voting, and talk to the assembly members. You know they're talking about their credentials, what they can bring into you know Caritas network. And this assembly happens once in 4 years, and then I think more than 130 delegates were there this year in assembly in Rome. And unfortunately, Cardinal Tagle was not present for the assembly because he has got another appointment which he has agreed to receive an honorary degree in US, and he was not present. So to be honest, personally I was a bit anxious because his absence might affect his you know chances to be elected, because he wouldn't be able to personally address you know the delegates. If he was there, then there was no need for anxiety, because I know Cardinal Tagle can be a darling to anyone who is present there. He will be smiling to everybody, and he will be talking to anyone. He is so accessible to people. So I wouldn't have any anxiety to get him elected. But when I heard he was not there, and then Archbishop Yusuf was there for the assembly from the day one, and he was talking to people, and presence itself, makes a big difference in, Canada, because it's not a political election, rather this is a church organization's election, and people will be happy to see that who is accessible, to whom. And in this case, I know it very well that Cardinal Tagle will be accessible to anybody for that matter, but still he's still not able to make it in the assembly because of his appointment with the US, because he is getting an honorary degree from one of the university in the US, so he was not there. And instead of his personal presentation, he was shown only a video clip. But after the elections, over, it is something quite amazing that he has secured 91 out of 133 votes, casted. That is something amazing. So that means, the people, recognize, his role, and also people recognize, these delegates are from all 130 different organizations, Caritas member organizations. So they know that, who could deliver what, the church as a whole committed to do in the next 4 years, because, we talk about Caritas, talk about one human family and care for the creation, that is something that as a theme. And I don't think that anyone else is more fit than Cardinal Tagle to guide the whole Caritas family to that aim. I strongly believe that is Caritas Philippines, NASA Caritas Philippines, under the leadership of Cardinal Tagle. Even if he was not directly related to Haiyan program, but Cardinal Tagle has played a very pivotal role in getting the right attention from Caritas member organizations from all over, and it has surpassed the whole capacity of Caritas network. And Cardinal Tagle's presence itself, and also his strategic support, and also his depth in the subject, the whole thing, and how we need to mobilize resources and to the betterment of the poor who are affected. And his commitment to the work among poor is known in Philippines and elsewhere. And you also might have seen that Caritas Manila, which is under the leadership of Cardinal Tagle, has mobilized huge resources in support of Haiyan response. So Caritas Philippines was coordinating even the responses from all over, including Caritas Manila. It was a well coordinated manner, and then CA was put the step mechanism, like I represent the solidarity team emergency partnership. That's a mechanism that CA has put in place and mandated by Caritas Internationalis. And with that, NASA Caritas Philippines was able to coordinate, one of the biggest humanitarian response in the country as a response to Haiyan. And Cardinal Tagle was, briefed, always informed what was happening in the country, and he used to give advice. And I had an opportunity to meet Cardinal Tagle once, along with the Executive Secretary, Father Edwin Garrigas. We had a chance to meet Cardinal Tagle, and then explain to him, inform him what has been happening, and he was all the more informed, because unlike that of many of the church leaders, I could really feel that he follow the information quite vividly, and he remembers. And one occasion he was naming 7 or 8 typhoons that hit the last 2 years in Philippines, and I was so excited to hear from Cardinal Tagle that's naming each disaster, and then he's saying that who was doing what and where, and absolutely fantastic. So this, to answer your question, I would say that Cardinal Tagle's presence, Cardinal Tagle's commitment to reach out to the poor when they are in need, has been really helpful Caritas Philippines, to mobilize resources and do the job better, and then still they are doing it. This is a huge role, especially after the 2012 framework that Pope has agreed on and signed off, as Caritas role. This is something amazing, because Caritas network as a whole, in internationally or globally, this is one of the biggest network that you can imagine. Probably this would be the second to Red Cross movement, or equal to Red Cross movement. It's one of the biggest in the network. And having a Pope for the poor, like Pope Francis, and who is known as Pope of the poor, and then having a president of Caritas Internationalis as Cardinal Tagle, who is known as poor, the bishop of the poor. And the commitment of both of them, that makes them much more closer in designing and also developing, and also to guide the whole Caritas family towards what they committed as for work for the poor. And the assembly theme itself, talking about go to the peripheries and serve people, and that is what Pope Francis was saying during the inaugural mass of the General Assembly. And it goes very well with that, what Cardinal Tagle is all about. He is an advocate of the poor. He weeps, he cries, and that is what Pope Francis told us, when he visited Philippines. Learn to cry with others. And I have seen a couple of times, Cardinal Tagle weeping. And I don't think that I have ever seen any other bishops, weeping. And I have seen Cardinal Tagle was weeping. And this is what, the understanding and, understanding of Pope and Cardinal Tagle in their commitment. And having said this, the having a commitment at understanding at the senior most level, Pope and the president of the CI, would itself make them closer and clear to do a better job, and guide the whole Caritas family to do their mandate, to execute their work in a more professional and with the heart. And it's not only professionalism, but working with the heart. That would be something. Will be, Pope would be asking Caritas to do it. I was reading somewhere that Pope was telling that you are not simple aid workers to the Caritas staff. Pope was saying you are not simple aid workers. You are much more than that. You are the witness of that, and this is something that's going to happen. The next 4 years, what the framework that has been agreed by Caritas, and Cardinal Tagle will be leading it, and I can see that Cardinal Tagle will be taking the premier role in making sure that we are working within the framework, serving the poor and advocate for the poor, and that would be the change that Cardinal will be making in his tenure as the new and first Asian president of CI. I think he is coming closer to that position now. He's making his position much more closer to that, because he is showing that he is papalable, because it is possible, because even someone is the news, it was showing that is wise Pope. That is very true. Very true in the sense that when we have a Pope like Pope Francis, and Pope needs someone to talk to, and in this case Cardinal Tagle would be one of his strongest ally to talk about the poor and advocate for the poor, and that will make him much more closer to they are close, absolutely, no doubt, because they have the same thinking. And when you listen to Cardinal Tagle, you hear that how close that he is to Pope Francis. And this particular position, even the president of CI, and he is not only the president, he is the president of the Biblical Federation, which has recently appointed. So he has several feathers on his cap. So this is an additional impetus for him to get to that position. If that happens, an election process happens for the next Pope, I would say that being the second youngest cardinal in the whole consortium, the Bishop Tagle definitely has a prominent role, and this is paving a way or clearing his way to that position, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens after the tenure of the present Pope. Oh, that's good. That's good, April, because this is going to be more challenging for Caritas Philippines, because we will be always in limelight. In Caritas Philippines, will be always in limelight because President of CIE is from Philippines, and people will be looking forward to see Caritas Philippines, how it is growing, how it is becoming a model Caritas for the whole world, because that comes to us challenge, saying that we will not be able to make many mistakes. We will have to make sure that we are doing the right thing at right time, so that we have to protect even Cardinal Tagle's popularity and name and his stature as the president, because if Caritas Philippines make mistake, that will affect his popularity as well, because he is from Philippines and he is heading the church here, and he's the most respectable leader in this country, and that gives Caritas Philippines a formidable challenge, and I'm pretty sure that Caritas Philippines will rise to that level and fulfills its obligations and mandate. I mean, Caritas Philippines will always get that support from member organizations, because Philippines has shown that how credible they are. They could scale up when there was a need with support from CIMOs, the member organizations, with overwhelming support, and over the years they have grown into good size, and then they have strengthened its capacity, and they have proven that they are a formidable force, and they are a reliable group to work when disaster strikes. I mean, not only during disasters, because it has got its own development program, longer term program department. They are doing their work, but as a whole Caritas Philippines has grown and strengthened its position. So having a president from Philippines, it is giving all the more support and all the more limelight to get more funding and more program, and which is deserving. It is not something that the resource will come to the country because we have a president. It is not the case. Rather, there is need, and Caritas Philippines has been able to prove to the world that they are a reliable group. And then when you have a leader who would be guiding not only the Caritas, but Caritas Philippines, but also the global Caritas, then you have all the more chances to get attracted to new opportunities, funding or otherwise, new opportunities, and that will be one of the unlimited factor for Caritas Philippines by having Cardinal Tagle as president of CI. I'm a fan of him. Yeah. Because I have opportunities to listen to him, see him, hear him, and joke with him and laugh with him. So I would only wish that all successes for his new role, because this is a very challenging role. But with all his humility, which that is his signature, because he is a very, very humble person, and that is his signature. So I'm sure that with that humility he would be able to do this job better than anybody else at this point of time. And church is having enough challenges not only in Philippines, all over, and this is the time that Pope is calling for us to be the witness. And I think we have the right person at the right place now to show to the world that we are going to the peripheries and becoming witnesses to serve the poor and advocate for the poor. For Caritas Philippines, message is very simple. Okay. Continue to do the great work you guys are doing, number one. Number two is try to to improve the accountability and transparency issues. Try to improve that, and also to make sure that we are not making any mistakes, rather we will be upholding the best practices, the best standards and code of ethics, and we cannot compromise any of these issues, especially when we have Cardinal Tagle at the helm of affairs. We cannot afford to make any mistakes. That will be the message for Caritas Philippines.